Hello, my name is Daniel Soffner. I'm a Senior Success Architect for Salesforce Data Cloud based in Melbourne, Australia. And in this demonstration, I would like to show how customers can connect their own data lake to Salesforce Data Cloud using our zero ETL approach. This approach allows customers to access and find data from a data lake by leaving the data in the location it already resides in, providing a combined view of the data. What are the advantages? Zero ETL ensures near real-time access to the current data between data sources. It eliminates the need for traditionally complex ETL or extract, transform, load processes. And it eliminates data silos and provides more control over data access and governance. Let's get started with Google BigQuery. Now we will connect Salesforce Data Cloud with Google BigQuery so we can view our data in Data Cloud in our BigQuery environment. That is the data share scenario. Before we get started, we need to make sure that our GCP principal has the right permissions. It has to be the Analytics Hub subscriber role, the Analytics Hub viewer role, and the BigQuery admin role. In our Data Cloud environment, we will now create a new data share target that will specify the connectivity to our BigQuery environment. We give it a label name and the email address which corresponds to our Google Cloud principal. We select the type user and now we have connected our Data Cloud environment to Google BigQuery. You can see here that the authentication status is successful and the data share target status is active. Now we will create a data share where we will specify the objects that we would like to share with Google BigQuery. We provide it with a label name, the data space where the data share will be located, and then we can select the objects that we would like to share with BigQuery. Here we only pick one object, which is a booking object. We save it. Now in the next step, we now need to link our data share with a data share target. The only data share target that we currently have is the one to Google BigQuery. We save it. And now the data share will be linked to the data share target and connected to Google BigQuery. We're back in our BigQuery environment now. And what we have to do now in order to see the data shared from Data Cloud is to go to Analytics Hub and search all of the listings of the data assets that are available within our Google Cloud organization or that have been shared with Google Cloud. When we search our listings, the first one we will see is the one coming from the data share in Salesforce Data Cloud. We can now add this data set to our project. We provide it with a name, SFDC Bookings, and share it in our Google Cloud project. When we go back to BigQuery Studio, we can now access our project and we will see that the data set from Data Cloud has been added to our project. We can see here the data model object, which represents the booking data with the different fields. What we can do now is create a query in BigQuery Studio that would allow us to select all of the data from that particular object and display it in BigQuery Studio. Here are the results of our query coming directly from Salesforce Data Cloud via Zero ETL. As you can see, these are car bookings. So you would have information such as drop-off location code or drop-off location name. And if we now go back to Salesforce Data Cloud into the Data Explorer and we select the same data model object for booking, we can see exactly the same data that have been shared with Google BigQuery. Now I will demonstrate how to set up data federation between Salesforce Data Cloud and Google BigQuery. Namely, how can we view data from Google BigQuery within the Salesforce Data Cloud interface using the Zero ETL approach. Before we establish the connection, we would have to create a new service account in Google. We would have to assign 4 roles to that service account: the BigQuery Data Viewer role, the BigQuery Job User role, the BigQuery Metadata Viewer role, and the BigQuery Read Session User role. Additionally, we will have to generate a private key for this particular service account that we will utilize to get connectivity between Data Cloud and Google BigQuery. Now let's go back to the Data Cloud setup interface and click on More Connectors on the left-hand side. We want to create a new connection to Google BigQuery. In order to achieve that, we first have to provide a connection name that describes what we want to do. Then the email address for the newly created service account. And then we want to upload the SSH private key that is necessary for the connectivity. Last but not least, we want to specify the project ID that we want to connect into. Let's test the connection, and connection was established. So we save this new connection and we can now utilize it to view the data from Google BigQuery in Data Cloud. First, let's have a look at the data set that we want to see in Salesforce Data Cloud. I used for this particular presentation the publicly available data sets that are available from the Google Cloud Marketplace. I specifically selected a data set representing the births by US county that I imported here into my project. What you can see here is essentially the number of births per county with the county of residence FIPS ID, the year, and additional data in that particular data set. So this is the data set that I want to now see in Salesforce Data Cloud through a Zero ETL approach. Now I will create a new data stream. I will select Google BigQuery as my source. Under connection, I select the connection to Google BigQuery that I just created. Under database, I will select the project ID, which contains the schema that I want to see in Salesforce Data Cloud. So here's my data set, and here is the object that I want to associate with this data source object. The next step is then provide an object name. In this case, I call it Google BigQuery Births Data Summary by US County. It falls into the profile category. I want to import all of the supported fields. And what I want to do as the primary key is I want to create a composite key consisting of the year and the FIPS ID for the county of residence. So under primary key, I select those two fields, county of residence and year. When I click on next, I can select the data space. In this case, it's default. I can specify the acceleration and caching, what that schedule looks like. For the demo, I will disable that, and I deploy my data stream. Once the data stream has been successfully deployed, it will show as active, meaning the zero ETL connection between Google BigQuery and Salesforce Data Cloud is now live. And you can go to Data Explorer and pick the data lake object that we just created in order to see the live data from Google BigQuery showing up in Salesforce Data Cloud. Now that we've seen how data sharing and data federation works in Google BigQuery, let's do the same with Snowflake. Now I will show how to create a data share and data share target between Salesforce Data Cloud and Snowflake, so we can view the Salesforce Data Cloud data in our Snowflake environment. What we have to do first is to create a new user in Snowflake, which has the default role of public. Additionally, we will also have to create a security integration, grant the role of public to that security integration, and then get details such as the OAuth authorization endpoint, client ID, and client secret from Snowflake in order to create the data share target in Salesforce Data Cloud. Now let's create a data share target to connect our Salesforce Data Cloud instance to our Snowflake instance. Let's pick Snowflake in this dialog. Let's specify a label and the account URL which we should get from our Snowflake instance. When we save this, we get some details about our Snowflake instance, the account name, the cloud on which it is running. In this case, it is AWS, and the AWS region in which it is running in. In order to successfully connect to Snowflake, we now have to provide our client ID and our client secret, which we got earlier from our Snowflake instance. When we click on Save, we get redirected to a login UI into Snowflake. We now have to provide our username. That is the new user that we created earlier in Snowflake, and the password. We have now successfully created a data share target to our Snowflake environment. If the authentication status says successful, we're good to go now to create our data share. In the data share UI, we provide a label called Snowflake Share. We specify the data space in which the data share will live. And we now select the object or objects that we want to see in Snowflake as part of the data share. Let's pick the case object and save the data share. Very similarly to Google Cloud BigQuery, we now have to link the data share with the data share target. We pick here Snowflake as our data share target. And now the data share and the data share targets were linked. And we should now be able to view our Salesforce Data Cloud data in our Snowflake environment. Now we're back in our Snowflake environment and we're ready to view the data that have been shared by Salesforce Data Cloud. We go to Data Products and to Private Sharing. And here we can see under Direct Shares the data share from Salesforce Data Cloud. We click on Get Data. And now when we go back to the databases that we have access to, we can now see the data share from Salesforce Data Cloud. We can open the schema and the views, and we should be able now to see the schema of the case details from Salesforce Data Cloud. We can go to Data Preview and should be able now to see the cases, the 5 cases that are available in Salesforce Data Cloud. When I switch over to Data Explorer in Salesforce Data Cloud and I select the case DMO, I am able to see exactly the same 5 case data. Now I want to demonstrate how to set up data federation between Snowflake and Salesforce Data Cloud. So we can view our Snowflake data inside of our Salesforce Data Cloud instance, again with a zero ETL approach. In the Data Cloud setup, we go to Configuration and we select the menu point Snowflake. Here we provide a connection name, the account URL through which we will connect to our Snowflake instance, and the name of a user that we're using for this connection as well. Now this is a user that I created in Snowflake called Data Cloud Fed. It has the default role of account admin and a default warehouse. Also, I created a private and a public key that I will utilize to connect between Data Cloud and Snowflake. Last step is to provide the private key and establish a connection to my Snowflake instance. Here I'm presented with the region in which my Snowflake instance is running and the warehouse that I want to connect to. And I've established my connection to my Snowflake instance. In order to view my Snowflake data in Data Cloud, I will have to create a new data stream. I first select the connection that I've just established to my Snowflake instance. And I select a database that contains the data that I want to show in Salesforce Data Cloud as a data stream. In this case, I'm using some of the sample data that come with the Snowflake trial instances. This schema contains a selection of orders. So I will select that. I'll provide it with a object name, Snow Orders. Because there are orders, I have to select the engagement category. The event time field is the order date, and the primary key is the order key. And I want to view the remaining data around that order as well. I select the data space, and again I can have a choice whether I want to enable acceleration, and I deploy the new data stream. Once the data stream has been deployed, I can now go to Data Explorer and have a look at my Snow Orders data-like object, which shows the data from Snowflake through a zero copy, zero ETL approach. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you found this demonstration and explanation useful.